PodCastle, episode 804 for Tuesday the 12th of September 2023. Fixer, Worker, Singer by Natalia Theodoridou. Read by Peter Adrian Berevesh, Tina Connolly and Jen R. Albert. And rated PG-13. Good morning, good day, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to PodCastle, the flying castle of fantasy fiction. I'm your host, Matt Dovey, and it's my deep and abiding joy to present a Natalia Theodoridou story for you once again. Fixer, Worker, Singer, as narrated by Peter Adrian Berevesh, Tina Connolly and Jen R. Albert, for episode 549 some 5 years ago, having originally been published at the oft-missed Shimmer. We've pulled it back out of the vaults at the request of Jen, who's returned to us today to celebrate our 15th anniversary year with us, and is hanging around at the end for an interview and a catch-up, including such burning questions as, why did you ask this oddball Brit to be involved anyway? And remember that we want you involved in these celebrations too. 15 years is one heckin' achievement online, and we wouldn't be where we are without you. Pop on over to our website at podcastle.org and check the pinned post at the top, where you can send in your own recommendations for tales from the vaults to be shared at the end of an episode. Natalia Theodoridou is a queer immigrant writer and editor, the winner of the 2018 World Fantasy Award for Short Fiction and a Clarion West graduate, class of 2018. Natalia's stories have appeared in Clarkesworld, Strange Horizons, Uncanny, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Nightmare, Fireside and elsewhere. Rent-A-Vice, Natalia's first interactive novel for Choice of Games, was a finalist for the inaugural Nebula Award for Game Writing. Your narrators are three. Peter Adrian Berevesh is an Iranian-American musician, writer, editor, narrator and audio producer, including for a certain flying castle for a few years back there. Tina Connolly is the co-host of Escape Pod, sole visionary behind Toasted Cake and author of the Iron Skin and Seriously Wicked series, as well as the collection On the Eyeball Floor. Jen R. Albert is an editor, writer and former entomologist. She works full-time as an editor at ECW Press, an independent publishing house based in Toronto, and was, as you know, co-editor here for 5 glorious years. And now pay attention, for our tale is about to begin, and Welder left it for you to hear.
Fixer, Worker, Singer by Natalia Theodoridou. Fixer turns on the stars. The sky creaks as Fixer makes his way across the steel ramp that is suspended under the firmament. It's time to turn on the stars. He pauses a few steps from where the switches and pulleys are located and looks down. He allows himself only one look down each day just before sunset, at the rows of machines, untiring, ever-moving, at the singer's house with its loudspeakers, sitting in the middle of the world, at the steep, long ladder that connects the Fixer's realm to everything below. He's only gone down that ladder once, and it was enough. Fixer caresses the head of the hammer hanging from his belt. Then he walks to the main board and turns off the sun. The stars come on. He pulls on the ropes to wheel out the moon. There. Job well done. Fixer senses the coil inside him uncoiling. He retrieves the key from the chest pocket of his coveralls and thumbs its engraving. Wind yourself in the welder's name. He inserts the key's end in the hole at the side of his neck and winds himself up. In the welder's name. The sky creaks. Wound up and tense as a cord, Fixer sits on the ramp and rests his torso against the railing. He inspects the firmament under the light of the star bulbs. The paint is chipping. It will need redoing soon. He wonders whether it was the welder himself who first painted the sky. It must have been him, no? Who else could have done it before Fixer existed? Fixers, he corrects himself, and the coil tugs at him with what could be guilt, but is not. He imagines the welder, just his hands. He can't picture all of him, never has been able to, slathering on the blue paint, then carefully tracing the outlines of clouds. Fixer pulls the wine flask out of the side pocket of his coveralls and takes a swig. It's just stage booze, water-colored red. Can't get drunk on it. He figured that out a long time ago. But he still likes to pretend, especially when the sky creaks the way it does tonight, when his coil is tense just so. What wouldn't he give to feel things? What hasn't he given? To be drunk, to be angry, to be excruciatingly joyful. But the world is so quiet now, quietly falling away. Even emergencies are rare, and it's lonely under the stars. He takes another swig from the flask. "Make-believe wine in honor of the great welder in the sky," he says. Another swig. The coil eases some. His back slumps a little against the railing. One of the stars didn't come on, he notices. The bulb must have given out. Fixer gazes at the concrete shape of the moon haloed by the spotlight that's reflected off its surface. There is rebar poking through at the sides. The back is crumbling. But that doesn't matter. Only Fixer can see the backside. Things only have one good side, from which they are meant to be looked at. Yes, the world is quiet now, but for the creaking of the sky. The hum of the machines below has stopped for the night. There used to be thunder beyond the firmament, but not anymore. There used to be singing from the singer's house, and the welder's voice blasting through the pipes of the world. Now there's only the singer's rusty voice spilling out of the loudspeakers in short, shallow bursts.
Tap into this thing. This ugly feeling of despair.
The singer's voice croaks, as if she knows, actually knows what it's like to stare at the backside of the moon. Fixer glances at the blown star bulb again. The coil inside his chest wants to spring forth, find the spare light bulbs in the dark, fix it. Fixer fixes the sky, and if he doesn't, he's no fixer at all, is he? But, instead, he takes another swig from the wine flask. Watercolor communion with the welder who fashioned the world. He closes his eyes. "I'll fix it tomorrow," he says out loud.
Singer, his voice in fragments. Your metallic voice, the wind rushing through me. I remember when we voiced this pipe organ together, every flue, every reed, so it could breathe with your truth. Now everything is rusty and old, falling and apart. I haven't seen you in so long. Fragments of your voice run through me and into your organ, my organ, when I least expect it. When I manipulate the pipes, aching to make each one sound the way it used to. I cut my fingers on the rough edges and fake blood comes out, mixed with grease. And I have all these foreign memories that you planted my body with. These fragments I cut myself on every day. An old man tuning a pipe organ. A 45 round-nosed bullet fired from a handgun, tunneling through a body. And did you know the machine gun was inspired by a seed-planting machine way back? Of course you did. And there's also the voice of a very young poet made great only by his self-imposed death. Why did you deem this story important for me to know? Am I to sing about it? Every day I think about the poet. Is it because the poet boy worked at a factory? Was it much like this one? Is it true he fed himself to the machines? You are not forthcoming with answers to my questions. And I have enough self-awareness to know I am falling apart, but I do not know why or why not, or why I should keep myself from doing so. Yours was always a practical project first and foremost, yet you never lacked in poetry. Why else would you have installed a singer in the middle of it all? And why did you leave me here all alone? fixer always had a partner, each the fail-safe of the other, keeping one another from thinking themselves more than they are, and workers are many because you needed many. But there's only ever been one singer. Was I your most successful feature? Or the least so? I pressed the loudspeaker pipe open. Tap into this thing, I say. This ugly feeling of despair. And not even I am sure who I am talking to anymore.
Worker, keep this shop like you would your home. Pull, turn, press, says the coiled thing inside. So we pull, we turn, we press. The conveyor belt does not pause, and neither do we. We work the line. We never blink. Our eyes close when the shift is over, and only then. We never blink, or we will miss the next beat, the next bullet, and the next. Projectile, case, primer. The propellant container is empty, has been for some time. The great barrels that used to haul it in came empty for a while, then stopped coming in at all. Should we stop? Could we stop? We shouldn't. We couldn't. We didn't. We don't. Pull, turn, press. Projectile, case, primer. No propellant. The bullets are lighter now, but the work doesn't stop. The work doesn't change. Handling the lighter bullets takes great care. Our hands are slowly accustoming to the new weight. Pull, turn, press. Don't make a mess. We keep this shop like we would our home, just as the sign on the wall says we should. We glance at it, only glance. We never blink. Our eyes are dry and our wrists hurt. They hurt so much we wish we could take them off, and the coil inside us slowly unwinds. At night, when the moon comes out and the shift ends, we will wind ourselves up, one more time. Then, a piece of the sky comes down with a thud. We glance up.
Singer sings of holes in the sky. There is a hole in the sky. Does this mean you're coming back? Does this mean you've started dismantling the firmament on your way back to us? I blow through a loose flue. Disconnected from the organ like that, it reminds me of a long gun's barrel. Its speech as distinct as a rifling, as fingerprints, as a person's voice. I hold my palms in front of my eyes. Why did you make me without fingerprints? I search my repertoire for answers, but I only come up with tidbits about wound ballistics instead. Hollow point bullets do not penetrate as deeply as round nose bullets, but they expand to almost twice their size within a person's body, causing devastating damage to surrounding tissue. Why did you want me to know all these things? How can I still love you, knowing you made me so I would know all these things? Can I? Are you coming back to me through the bullet wound in the sky?
Worker prays to a bullet. A piece of the sky came loose and fell to the ground, and from inside us came the sound of a spring breaking. Pull, turn, press. Projectile, case, primer. Something loose, above, inside. Pull, turn, press. We cannot look at the missing piece of the sky. We cannot look at the hole in the world. Instead, we pull, we turn, we press. We don't blink. Our wrists hurt. Tonight, when our shift ends, we will close our eyes and we will step back from the conveyor belt and we will rub our wrists and we will hold our wrists close to the uncoiling thing inside. And we will feel it uncoil almost all the way, and then we will wind ourselves up again. And we will look to the left, to the pile of all our other bodies resting neatly on top of the other. Did all our wrists hurt like this before each of those other bodies of ours stopped working? Did we forget to wind all our other bodies up again before our coils unraveled all the way to their very end? This we will wonder. One more time. And we will sweep the floor around our other bodies, and we will polish every part of the machines, every piston, every cog. We will keep this shop like we would our home, and then we will look up and we will close our eyes and we will open our mouths and we will wait for the singer's voice to fill our insides. And it will be as if we have swallowed a piece of the sun with sharp, rusty edges that catch on our tongue, and even the rust will be good. And so we will praise the great welder in the sky who made the sun and the moon and the stars. But thinking ahead to the end of the shift won't do. Pull, turn, press. Our wrists hurt. Something is loose, and we drop a bullet to the floor. Scatter primers everywhere. We've made a mess. We should keep this shop like we would our home, even when there's a hole in the sky. The coil inside strains as we pick the bullet up and hold it high above our head against the light of the sun, and it is light and light and light. Its full metal jacket, its hollow point. We see it going into a person's body. Inside the person's body, the bullet blooms into a flower. Who would think of such a thing, other than the welder in the sky, who made the sun and the moon and the rest? We look at the bullet and see it as a thing of beauty. The conveyor belt advances, the bullets unpulled, unpressed, unturned. Full metal flowers. Do they dream of blooming? Our wrists hurt. We think of praying. The words of the singer's song to the great welder in the sky flash in our head, as bright and as comforting as the stars. The coil inside sings, O welder, hallowed be thy name. But the words twist as the coil uncoils, and the sky creaks and primers are at our feet, and the conveyor belt conveys faster than our wrists can move, and the bullet is beautiful today. O bullet, our coil sings, flying lead ricocheting off our tongue. O bullet in the sky.
Fixer looks for a piece of the sky. Fixer was changing the blown star bulb when the piece of the sky came loose, leaving a gaping hole in the firmament. The sound it made as it hit the ground sent a shiver down Fixer's spine and caused his coil to tingle with tension. But now he is calm, standing at the top of the ladder, looking down. The sky needs fixing, and he is the only one to do it, and do it well. It might take a long time, looking for the piece, going all the way down and then back up again. It will throw the days and nights into chaos for sure. But what else can he do? There is no other fixer to turn off the sun while he's gone. Not anymore. And so he sets out for the ground, to walk among the machines and the workers and the noises of the world. It's been a very long time since he's last been to the ground. His hands feel like they might be trembling, but they are not. Is this excitement? Off he goes. Down, down, down for a long time. His feet are steady on each step of the ladder. His arms are strong. But the coiled thing inside his chest is coming looser and looser as time passes, and he will soon need winding up again, or he won't make it. He's almost to the last of his coil when he realizes he can see the sun from its good side. It is round and shiny and bright, despite the creeping rust at the edges of the metallic surface. It's perfect. The coil inside him creaks, and so does the sky. He takes out the key with unsteady hands, almost drops it, in fact, and then what would happen? What would happen to the world if he gave out, and there was no one to move time along anymore? He inserts the key into his neck hole and twists, his body tensing with every turn, and he knows deep in his core that now would be the time to switch off the sun and to wheel out the moon so the machines can stop and the workers can wind themselves up again under the sound of the singer's song. But he's not there to do that anymore, and it is still day even though it's night. He wonders what an endless day might do to the world, what sights may be seen under this much unexpected light. He wonders if the other fixer will be waiting for him on the ground, accusing, staring at his hammer, understanding nothing, stage blood coming out of his head. Fixer chastises himself and speeds up his descent. It shouldn't be long now. And if the other fixer is there, waiting, So what? Stage blood washes off easy. When he finally gets to the ground, he lands amidst the loud, tireless machines producing garlands upon garlands of cartridges. It takes him a while to understand what the heap lying next to the ladder is. Then, he sees them. An arm here, a face there, the pile of workers' bodies stacked neatly one on top of the other. What has happened here? What has become of the world while he was up there taking care of the stars? There is a single worker tending to the conveyor belt. She moves slowly, unsteadily. She's near the end of her coil, surely. "Hey you! Worker!" he shouts in order to be heard over the clamor of the machines. She turns her head, only for an instant, but still her hands miss the next bullet, scattering primers all over the floor by her feet. Fixer walks closer. "What happened to all the other workers?" he asks.
We're all still here,
She says.
but not all of us talk and move anymore.
She speaks slowly. She's almost done, almost spent. "You can stop working now," Fixer says. "Your shift is over. Wind yourself, in the welder's name."
But it's still day.
"No, it's not. It's night." He points at the hole in the firmament. "I just had to come down here, so there's no one left to turn on the stars." Worker is still working, but she steals furtive glances at the sky.
But it's not night.
She insists. Her voice quivers. He approaches, his hammer swinging at his belt. He looks at this worker, the tragedy of her existence, the completeness of her devotion. She will work herself to the end, and it's all his fault. He gently takes her shoulders and pulls her away from the conveyor belt, letting the half-formed bullets fall off the end and clatter onto the ground. Her hands are still going through the motions, pulling, turning, pressing. He grabs them, steadies them. "It's okay," he says. "It's night. You can stop now. It's night." He repeats this until she stops moving. She holds her hands close to her chest and stares at the sky for a long time. Then she lets her body slump onto the floor. Fixer sits on the ground next to her, his back against the unfaltering machinery of the world. He feels his coil uncoil slowly, looks over to the pile of workers, and, for a moment, he wonders if this is it. If he should just sit here next to the last of the workers, allow his coil to uncoil all the way to the end and stay there, let his body shut down, collecting dust under the relentless light of the sun. But then his eye catches a glimpse of the hole in the sky, and the coil inside strains because he needs to fix the flaw in the world. So he gets back up and goes to look for the missing piece of the sky. Before he starts climbing the ladder with the piece held tightly under his arm, he puts his key in the worker's neck and winds her up. For a moment, she looks confused. Then she's on her feet again, pulling, turning, pressing, as if nothing has passed between them, or between her and the world. She doesn't say a word.
"Singer," his voice back together again. "I thought the day's length was a sign that you were coming back. I thought the hole in the sky was a sign that all of this was finally over. The constant fight against the rust with nothing but grease and a handful of facts that I no longer know how to assemble into songs. But the hole is gone now, and the sun no longer shines in the sky. The world is healed, restored. The creation you left behind intact, self-preserved. The organ's voicing is as complete and perfect as it is ever going to be without you. You made me well. But you did not make me to last forever, did you? Because now, wouldn't that be cruel? Tonight I will sing my best hymn to you. It is only one word, but it is the sweetest one I know, O welder, O welder in the sky, and the only one I know to be true. Look, the moon is coming out.
Fixer sleeps under the stars. Fixer's limbs feel heavy and worn as he paints over the restored piece of the firmament under the faint shine of the moon. He could have looked through the hole in the sky, but he didn't. The coil wouldn't let him, he told himself. It jerked and strained at the mere thought. Besides, why would he? The world is fine as it is. Soon, everything will be as it was before, as if nothing ever happened. As soon as he finishes the restoration, he turns on the stars, and each one comes alive, bright and familiar, their light soft and soothing. The coil inside him is quiet now. The singer's voice spills out of the loudspeakers. Is it just him, Fixer wonders, or does it sound just as it used to when they first came into the world, before the rust, before the world started giving out, falling apart? She really does have the most beautiful voice, Singer.
Welder, welder, welder.
She repeats all night long, making everything okay. Fixer decides to sleep in his ropes tonight, suspended under the stars, lulled by the singer's voice and the creaking of the sky. In his dream, he's carrying the piece of the sky under his arm. There is a great joy inside his chest. He takes a swig from his flask, and it burns his throat as if it were no longer stage wine. It makes his coil vibrate with song. Could I sing, he wonders. Could a fixer ever sing? Drunk on his joy and his wine, Fixer no longer thinks of the tired worker below. He doesn't think of the pile of bodies, or of the other fixer's head, staring at what can no longer be fixed. In his dream, Fixer runs his fingers over the surface of the sky. He traces its length, its chipping paint, the flat outlines of its clouds. Then he pulls his hammer from his tool belt and caresses its head while the coil inside loosens and loosens. In Fixer's dream, the flawed world creaks. Before nailing the fallen piece back in place, he peeks through the hole in the firmament, at the maddening beauty, at the stars beyond the stars.
And welcome back. That was Fixer, Worker, Singer by Natalia Theodorodou. And if you enjoyed that, my goodness have I got some recommendations for you. Personally, I adore Ribbons, which we ran last year as episode 743. But there's also His Giant Heartbeat, episode 591. Mateusz Goes Higher, episode 456. The Raven Sister, 508. And The Vandalists, episode 381. There's also episodes of Escape Pod, Pseudopod and Cast of Wonders, and just so many stories at natalia-theodorodou.com. And if you'll indulge me one final recommendation, though seriously listen to Ribbons first, you should also check out The Prince of Salt and the Ocean's Bargain in Uncanny Magazine, which is a Nebula Award finalist last year, and is simply gorgeous, and feels archetypal, like it's a story that always should have existed. Okay, you've heard enough of my gushing about Nassos and his stories, because I could be here for hours. So for variety's sake, let's listen to Jen gush about them too. Jen R. Albert, welcome back to the castle.
Thank you, it's so nice to be here.
It's a delight to have you back. First off, do you want to introduce yourself for people who might not have been around for your original run, though it didn't end that long ago?
No, not too long ago. Well, a couple of years now. So, hi, I'm Jen Albert, Jen R. Albert. I am an editor at ECW Press right now, specializing in science fiction, fantasy, horror, all the fun, weird stuff, speculative fiction. And I was co-editor of PodCastle for about 5 years, between 2016 and 2021, I believe.
Yes. No, it might have been mid-20...
Mid 22, yeah.
No, start of 22 was I took over as host, so that was when Summer had gone. Okay. So you must, and the editorial changeover had happened.
Somewhere in
So I think it's Summer 21, I think, was the switch.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a good sort of 5 years, definitely.
Wow.
Which we will come to. Before we get into all that, though, because everybody's just heard Fixer Worker Singer by Natalia. So why this story?
So there was a bit of a joke at PC that you are in on, I believe, that whenever Natalia's stories become into the slush pile, we knew they would be bought because I fell so in love with his work all of the time.
Same.
He's amazing, and I love a full cast reading as well. So I think it was really great to pick a full cast one, or at least it's a 3-part cast, and this is perfectly a 3-part story kind of thing. But also I feel like the story is very emblematic of my taste in fiction. I love a story that doesn't explain too much. I love a story that sort of lets you live in its halls as if you belong there, as if you kind of always have been there. And it doesn't feel the need to explain overtly sort of what's going on and that kind of thing. And this rusting, abandoned, mechanical world in this story is so fascinating. Its 3 inhabitants are so interesting, and the subtle interactions between them, the 3 little solitary people here, just have a huge effect on me. They're holding the world up. It's sad and beautiful in a way that I love. It's all vibes and no plot, which is my thing as well. And I feel like since we did this episode, it's kind of become more prescient. It's these sad, overworked things that are holding up a broken world. Not relatable at all. They don't even understand this world. They're dealing with it in very different ways, the 3 of them. Things are, in the way that a lot of us do. The singer sort of despairs, waxes poetic, looks to the past for answers and asks questions about it. The worker looks down, lives in the present, lives for the next day, and just kind of like tries to get through. And the fixer is doing the job, but finds sort of joy and inspiration and dreaming when he sort of can. The genders I'm sort of using with the narrator's genders right now in the way that we did it in the show. But I think there's so much, they're doing all of this, and even when they know it's sort of like ultimately pointless in a way, there's beauty in that and in the interactions here. So I enjoy bleakness and tragedy when it's juxtaposed with beauty in that way. I think because I find it cathartic.
Yeah,
that's why I love this story.
I agree with you. And Nassos always manages to write just... there's one that always comes to mind that I don't know if it ever even got published. It was in a Codex writing contest, the Weekend Warrior contest that's on the forums, where it's 750 words written over a weekend. And he just span off this story that just the world building felt like about 50,000 words worth. And just...
It's remarkable.
It's incredible the way you can just... And you in this one, just hint at things. You really get that feeling of there's a much bigger world outside the dome. At the end when Fixer just sort of looks out and sees the stars and everything.
The stars beyond the stars, And
you get the feeling there is so much more going on that you just don't know on a conscious level, but somewhere on a subconscious it is still speaking to you somehow. There is a part of you that recognises that greater construct and connects to it, even as you can't put it into words. And no one ever makes me feel as stupid as Nassos when they're writing a story like this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you have enough context to feel the humanity of it.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really matter from there. And it's also super interesting. Yeah, I love it. I love so much of what he writes. So
yeah, did you have you read Ribbons that we ran last year?
Not yet.
You need to. It's the husband stitch, Carmen Maria Machado's one.
Oh my god,
it's a response to that from a transmasc perspective, and it is but then the world as well is so like this kind of ours but sideways. It's like a 90-degree turned world, orthogonal to us, and just the depth and the richness to it is just... I almost get this kind of synesthesia with his stories, because there's so much spicy red wine kind of depth and complexity and layers to it. It's you need to go listen to Ribbons.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
I absolutely adore it. I was shilling hard for that story for all the awards because it's amazing. But I'm honestly quite glad this is an interview episode and I don't have to come up with something clever to say about this, because I just feel insufficient to the task of pulling anything out of a Natalia's story, because it's beyond me. You can't dissect it because it is just this vibing whole, and to try and pull any part of it out, you can't examine it. independently.
That was definitely why I wanted to pick one of his stories. It's just like,
Yeah, and I mean, yes, I agree. It was indeed a running joke that you would always buy any story he sent in, but, for good reason. And, I was... it's a thing we do in the outro now. We go, hey, if you enjoyed this, here's some other stories from the author. And I was looking down his website, his bibliography, and the amount of short stories, and just... There's banger after banger after banger. They're all so good. And, like, if I could be any writer, as a short fiction writer, I would want to be Natalia. But I just, so much deep envy. But then I wouldn't want to be, because if I was, I wouldn't have the pleasure of reading them. I prefer being the audience, I think. Just incredible, yeah. And like you say, it is, even as this is a very surreal, absurd story, it is all too relatable of people grinding away to maintain a system they don't understand and doesn't seem to benefit them, but we do it because we've been told to do it, and it is what handed down to us.
And you have to catch those pieces of joy, even the fixer has a bit of a drinking problem. Like sometimes it's not necessarily the best things, but it's what you do to get by. I guess
snatch the moments you can, haven't you, to exist in a broken world. Which, So, incredible story, it really is. I could honestly just talk all day about Natalia's stories, but we're here to talk about you as well. So, how did you come to be involved with PodCastle in the way back when?
In 2016. So at the time I was kind of a hobbyist writer. I was slash reading for Uncanny already. And that's when Rachel K. Jones approached me, because I knew Rachel from a writing workshop, as you knew Rachel at the time as well, with Kat Rambo. And I was a huge PodCastle fangirl, and Rachel knew this, and so asked me to join. And so I read slash for both Uncanny and PodCastle for a little while. I started picking up more tasks around the castle, helping Rachel and Graham, who were co-editors at the time, and Kalita, who was assistant editor. And when Rachel decided that she wanted to leave, Kalita was too busy at the time to take over co-editor, so they asked me. And so it was me and Graham for a little bit, and there was some shuffling after because Kalita became co-editor, but that's pretty much how it sort of happened.
Just skip straight past the assistant bit and straight to the top. You were there as co-editor for, I think, longer than any other individual has been. How did you stick it out so long? Yeah, no, no one did it longer than you did. There were longer teams, but you're the longest individual.
I feel like it's like an ADHD skewed relationship with time in some ways. I was sure that Dave and Anna held that, but I guess not.
They were slightly shorter than you. They were together longer as an editorial team than you were with Kalida, which was probably your longest co-editor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
3 years with Kalida, 3.5?
At least 2.5, 3, yeah.
Yeah, because it was a year with Sheree and about 6 months with Graham, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were sort of the longest stable period, but you managed longer than either of them, I think.
I mean, it's not just a time thing. It's also like, PodCastle really changed my career trajectory. So most of the co-editors I worked with, including Kalita, Rachel, I did work with Rachel for a couple of months kind of behind the scenes in his transition. And Sheree, they're all writers at heart. They're wonderful editors. They enjoyed the job, but they had other things going on. They had passion for their writing. They wanted to leave to pursue their writing. In the course of working at PodCastle, I actually became a career editor. I realized that editing was my true love, because when I started here at PodCastle, I was an entomologist, a disillusioned academic working in the sciences.
Is there any other kind working in the sciences?
No. No, I'm a disillusioned editor working in the publishing industry. But basically, PodCastle was kind of what inspired me to go into publishing and to do this full time, because I just loved it so much. I loved working with the writers. I loved working with the stories. I completely switched careers. And now I'm working on sci-fi fantasy full time. And so I kept it up, I think, because it was my passion,
So yeah, as we sort of referenced there, you kind of work with, 4, I suppose, including Rachel, 4 other co-editors. So Rachel, Graham, Kalida, and Sheree. Did you find it different working alongside all of them? Did you sort of the roles and responsibilities shift a bit in the way you approached it?
Sort of. Roles and responsibilities shifted a little bit, and some of the dynamics shifted, but there was similar dynamics as well, because everybody was so sort of wonderful and passionate and kind and generous with giving space to the co-editor, all of the people I worked with. I find like there was very little conflict. We'd kind of let each other pursue the things that we were each passionate about and then take over those projects. So it was very different every week. And this is why PodCastle is so great. It's so broad in spectrum. It's so the stuff that we publish is so broad in genre. And so that sort of stayed the same. Responsibilities, things like contracts and that kind of thing shifted around a little bit, but the tastes changed massively, I would say, because I mean, like Graham's taste was very literary a lot of the time, often dark. We took some like really weird stuff in that time period. Sheree, C.L. Clarke is a really big fan of sword and sorcery, epic fantasy, loves world building. You can see that in Sheree's own fiction.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was really fabulous to work with C.L. Clarke because that's like the opposite of my taste. You know what I mean? So like it worked in a really interesting way and we published really different stuff. And that was so fun. And Kalita loves dark stuff as well and is a huge risk taker. She was so bold with her choices. I think Kalita shifted the trajectory of the castle more than anybody. She's a mother of teens. She's a nurse. She is a Black Muslim woman living in Texas. She is a strong, very bold person, has an extremely solid idea of who she is and what she likes. And she does not care if people don't like her picks. And so she taught me so much about being confident in the things that you like and not caring about the bigots, for example, who are going to yell at you and that kind of thing. We became more revolutionary, more hard hitting. And I think that really got us noticed in the award circuits and things like that as well. And so working with everybody was very, very different in terms of like the actual stuff that they liked to take. So I think it kind of had a different flavor all the time.
Yeah, because Kalita started we started doing the Eared episodes, didn't we? And Kalita, and she started really consciously trying to bring in that sort of, broader perspectives. And, I was saying in
definitely more political, a lot more diversity than there was before that. And really interesting work by interesting authors.
Yeah. Because I was saying in the Graham interview, we love Lord of the Rings, but there's a lot more to fantasy than just pretending Graham this is what medieval times are like.
Graham was so well read too, and is such a fan of all of this. So it was amazing to work with him because he just knows the history and he knows so much. He knew so many stories and so many authors and things that I had never heard of. And
he's a very erudite. I mean, he was trying to downplay himself and say he's but a pale shadow of Al, which I mean, everybody's a pale shadow of Alistair.
No one can keep up with that.
But Graham is really sort of really well read, really intelligent and insightful as well. And I think doesn't give himself the credit necessarily.
Oh my gosh, no! Graham had really, really interesting insights into all the stuff that we worked on together. I didn't work with him for about half a year, I think. But,
6 months was a crossover, I think. Interesting. The castle itself changed a lot during those years too, like you said. I think when you took over, we were still just about semi-pro, and we switched over to pro when it was. I think when it was you
almost exactly when I took over.
And it's sort of the end of your reign kind of coincided with we'd had a World Fantasy nomination, we'd got the first Hugo nomination. We were suddenly getting to those like the really big awards nominations. So it's a big old trajectory that we were sort of on during that time. But what sort of change in decision do you think sort of made that impact during your time?
I think it really coincided with Alan Marguerite's takeover of escape artists and growing of escape artists as a whole, and their very clear leadership and the way that they sort of ran the company and expanded the company in that time. I think it was that, and I also think it was just starting to publish more stories that were different, stories that were more political, definitely paying pro. And that was something that was very important to Alan Marguerite as well, and to me and Rachel and Graham and Kalita when we started that. And so, more political stories, diverse stories, things that were hard hitting, things that people hadn't encountered before, things that made people mad, but that were really empowering voices that weren't heard in the industry, especially at the time when we didn't have FIA. We didn't have a lot of the fabulous projects that have happened since then. People were ready for it, and just those different things. And Shirine, when Kalita was leaving, we wanted to be we wanted to find the right person as my co-editor, and C.L. Clarke was just amazing and so shockingly willing to step into the role, even though like her career was taking off or about to take off and all this kind of stuff too. And then Sheree and I we put a lot of thought into who would be our successors as well, and they've carried forward beautifully. I love what Shingai and Eleanor are doing.
Yes, but honestly, it's been such a relief these last few months to sort of still get the awards nominations for like our first full year in charge as the grown-ups and realise we haven't crashed the castle, because it's been a bit nervy at times. It maybe tell you after this. Yeah, I've ADHD'd completely the line of thought I was going to go with there, as happens. It's exhausting sometimes. Sheree is a very sort of conscious and aware person, I find. Sort of they really think about the impact of history and their impact on the world and their place in it and everything. And they're very, they don't just take the sort of the perceived story of history or whatever. They really examine it. They don't take anything for granted. They're always looking at it. And that really comes through in their two books as well. That sort of detail work comes through in their picks and comes through in the writing and all of that. So. Yeah, definitely. And like you're saying, Khalida as well is someone who through her real life circumstances also has no tolerance for that bullshit either, and is her
children are adults, works in oncology, has seen the breadth of life and is angry at it a lot of the time. And is angry at it, and wants to make it better. And then, like I say, there's that. You always got that sense, that real drive from Khalida that this world could and should be better, and we've all got a role to play in it. What surprised you about editing at PodCastle then that you didn't expect? I mean, that was the surprise. I was an entomologist at that time, and I love editing. I went into slush reading kind of because I was trying out writing. I was doing some writing things, and that's the standard advice, right? Slush read if you're going to write. So I was like, I went to Uncanny, I went to PodCastle, but I found my kind of calling. I loved from the outset kind of working on other people's stories, boosting their voices, bringing their dreams and visions to life. I've always been, we were talking about RPGs earlier, I've always been the healer, the support character, the buffer, and so that's editing is the real life version of that. And that's kind of what I realized. I could get, get paid to do this, not paid super well because publishing is not lucrative, as we all know, but it's, I'm not also, gunning to make the most money in my life. I want to have a job that I love and that I do.
What lessons from editing at PodCastle have you sort of carried forward into that sort of role at ECW now then? I guess all of it, effectively, then, probably.
So much of it, budgeting, contracts. Marguerite is a contract knows everything because of her, her actual job.
Real life.
So learning so much about that sort of thing, but mostly just getting into stories and pulling them apart and working with the author to bring about their vision of the story in the way that works best. And how to do it compassionately and how to do it well and make the author feel like things are going well and improving. And editing, I find, is an exercise in empathy. You have to intimately understand what the author's trying to do, what they want to accomplish, and help them do it without imposing your own vision or ego. And I developed all those skills for the first time at PodCastle.
That's what, in a sense, your job as an editor is to help the author get out of their own way, not to put yourself further in the way.
Pretty much. Yeah, exactly. It just shouldn't be a combat. I mean, sometimes it might get a little heated or whatever, but it's not a combative relationship. And it is the author's vision. And if you as the editor are taking on that story, you're trying to realize that vision and you sort of need to be in line with it. You know what I mean? You're not pushing it in the way that you see is best. You are not a co-author, you are an editor, and they are very different things. I'm sorry, also community. I wanted to call out that that's one thing I really got out of PodCastle, because I go to conventions and I sit in the corner and I don't talk to people, I'm shy, but I met so many people at the Escape Artists, and that just sort of opened a lot of doors for me that that are still open, and there's a lot of people that I know, like yourself included, and a lot of people who are my friends who I still kind of work with, but in a different capacity.
It's like instant convention family, isn't it? When you just see someone else you just know they're escape artists as well. It's just enough in common, and generally speaking, the people who are willing to give so much of their time to make these castles fly and spaceships soar and whatever. It's because it's a lot of hours go into doing all this. I mean, how many hours a week do you reckon you were putting in sort of co-editing PodCastle?
It definitely depended on the week. On top of job and life and all those things. Like at least 10. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of, as a co-editor, you are editing. You're not editing every story because we do a lot of reprints. Like PodCastle has always done a lot of reprints, but you're doing narrator coordination. You're listening to the episodes. You're trying to just sort of pull everything together, and probably like 10 hours a week. I think. If I wasn't narrating or doing anything else, which I did a lot of that as well.
I think from the outside it's easy to look and go, well, the editor just like picks the stories and then like maybe, you've used this word twice in the paragraph here, we'll switch that out or whatever. But there's so much more involved in just keeping the damn thing going.
There's so many steps after the picking of the stories.
Oh my God, finding the right narrator, getting the contract sorted, getting the bios in, working out the order of the schedule. Dealing with the award stuff, which I mean, it is always a huge privilege to get the awards, but then you've got to put together a voter packet and
there's
do
a
your
lot to
story
do for the awards. And you have to do social media work, and you have to, all the announcements and that kind of thing. We often would, like, co-editors host. I didn't host so much because I was a person who did not want to, which is what you and Summer and everyone else who were really fabulously doing that. But sometimes I did, and sometimes I narrated and that kind of stuff too. So those, there are a lot of little things to the job.
But that's why assistant editors exist, is to do all that boring stuff for you. I feel like assistant editor is really the thankless job because it's not got the glory of like co-editor, but it is the engine that keeps the whole thing running. It's without an assistant editor, it crumbles.
Assistant editors were extremely key.
As well as herding all the slush readers, which is not necessarily easy. We are fundamentally lazy and disinterested creatures. We need whipping into shape. No, the pile's open. Come on, get in there. Dive in. Oh, yeah, all right, fine. Are there any other sort of highlights of your sort of time? Anything that sort of really comes? I mean, I guess awards noms must be a real like high point for you.
Certainly, meeting Summer and Kalita for the first time at the World Fantasy Awards. That was amazing. And so many other people, like meeting Alan Marguerite for the first time in Ireland a couple of years ago when we had our first Hugo nomination. A lot of just so much of the community stuff stands out to me really well, and I a lot of the stories as well. Just wonderful.
I mean, feel free to throw more recommendations out there. If you've got it off the top of your head.
Oh my gosh, I should have. Well, I also I recommend all of the ones that I was there for, which is several
go back
hundred.
and spend like the next 6 months re-listen to 5 years worth of the archive. Go on, do it.
You asked me to pick one. It's like, what is the most like emblematic one? I can't. Yeah. What represents the rest of it? And that was like a really hard choice.
I bet. I mean, some people only had like a year or 18 months to pick from. You had 5 whole years. What's that going to be? 250
every
stories?
week for 5 years. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
It's amazing. This episode will be episode 803. That's how high the numbers have gotten. Yeah, isn't it?
Wow.
I can remember listening to episode 200 back in the day going, God, what an achievement. 200 episodes. Blimey.
And your first episode of PodCastle, what episode was that? Because that was about my very first behind-the-scenes editorial
my first
stuff.
Story one.
Your first story, Squalor and Sympathy.
Was Graham's pick, which was an awkward conversation, let me tell you. I think it's about 467, I think, off the top of my head.
That's about when I came in, so yeah. Wow.
Well, that leads us nicely on to the question I have been burning to ask since we started these interviews, because you were the person who invited me to join PodCastle. Yes. I don't know what the bloody hell I'm doing. Why did you ask me?
So we had sort of worked together. I wasn't really assistant editor, but I was kind of helping it with the assistant editing stuff at that time, because we already knew that I was going to be in several months co-editor, and I was helping Graham and Kalita and Rachel. And so that was also what was one of the stories that me and Graham and Rachel sort of all picked together. It was in that pool. So I was aware of you, and we were kind of working together on, I think I was doing contracts at that time or something like that. So I thought
because we had a lot of fun with the ridiculously titled story, didn't we? I'm going to have to look up. I can never remember the title off the top of my head. The Coral Skating Queen one.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness.
Because that one, have to give me a moment to find. Where is it? It'll be on my website.
It's very long.
Yeah, it says. I remember before Twitter raised the character limit, you couldn't actually fit this whole title in one tweet.
No.
How I became Coral Skating Queen of all the realms, pierced the obsidian knight, destroyed the legendary sword, and saved my heart's true love.
Absolutely amazing.
Because Stuart and I had written that, and we had sold it to you as a reprint before the anthology had come out, and then the anthology got delayed for about a year, and you kept saying, going, "Hey, can we print this yet?" No, sorry.
Yeah, so
we're really sorry.
We had already talked about that story as well. So yeah, and Rachel and you had done the Writers of the Future sort of workshop together, I think. So Rachel was like, Matt is the best, solid, interested in community, really has a good eye for stories and all that kind of stuff. And we need great team members. So that's how I ended up reaching out to you. It was like, yeah.
I've never had the courage to
recommendation.
I've never known. I kind of assumed, because I think it was after I'd sold Squalor and Sympathy and Coral Skating Queen with Stuart too. So, and they had been sold in like a matter of weeks. I think it might have even been the same day that the acceptances came through.
I think they were in the same group that me and Rachel and Graham sort of were looking at all together as co-editors.
Because the acceptances go out in batches, don't they? So you'd sort of sat there and made a decision. I got the notification of both of them on the same day. I sold two stories to one market in one day.
Yeah, I forgot they were both in the same thing because the other one came so much later.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
It did. Squalor and Sympathy was 427, and then Coral Skating Queen ended up being 467. So a good like 9 or 10 months later, because it just took so long to come out in the anthology first before we could actually then run it. I remember selling that one to you, and they're like, "Yeah, this is going to be brilliant, really good in audio." And then the questionnaire came through. Please can you now give us pronunciations for all the words in this? And it's got that
including
the sword name that hasn't got any vowels in it. We're like, I don't really know how we pronounce that. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know.
Oh my god, that was. So
I've completely ripped off Cassandra for one of my D&D characters now. Actually, I'm playing her as a Hexblade Warlock in a game as well now.
Perfect.
Because she's just a very fun characteressa. I did like her. Excellent. Well, there we go. And then because you asked me to do the social media as well, and that was I looked back on when I started doing that. I don't know. I've kind of hit my limit. With Twitter being in the state it's in now, I think I finally got to the end of my ability to do that. But I think episode 469 is the first one I've got the graphic for, so it was about then when I started posting. So that's about sort of 2017 then, so that was 6 years of doing that as well. God. So I'm sitting going, you were here forever, how did you stick it out? And I've been here like 7 bloody years at this point. Yeah.
Well, pretty much, you just started almost like
I think it was mid-2016.
I was a slush reader before that. I was an associate editor for a while before that, but
and here I am now, the idiot talking in front of the story every week. Good grief.
I love it.
It's weird as well, because Eleanor, obviously co-editor now, she and I were in Critters together in critters.org, where you'd sort of exchange feedback and everything. Both starry-eyed little baby writers dreaming of publication one day and everything. And then
I think you were the one that recommended that we take on Eleanor as well.
Yes, I think because I convinced her, like, slush reading's teaching me so much, it's amazing, you should get involved. And I think she was going to go for a Cast of Wonders one at first, but then it didn't quite work out the timing. And then we opened, I was like, yes, get Eleanor in. And then, she was copy editor for you for quite a while, wasn't she? Before then you sort of asked her to be your drop-in replacement. Which, I think is working out well. We're still getting the awards nominations, getting the WFA nom for the original edited story as well. Clearly it's all still going okay. Exciting times.
So many nominations, so exciting.
As well, I mean, you got us there first. It was because when was the WFA was before the Hugo, wasn't it? I think because this is the third year in a row we've had the Hugo, so it's 23.
Yeah, so we had the WFA in 2018, I think.
18, 19.
We had a nomination then.
Yeah.
18 or 19.
And then, was it Dublin? No, I think Dublin was before our first Hugo nom, wasn't it?
No, I think that was our first.
I think it was.
Or maybe not. No. It was the year after. You're right.
Because I remember Shimmer was on because I campaigned for Shimmer to finally get recognition on the ballot because it was just closing down in Dublin.
Right,
wasn't
yes. So it was the year after.
So yeah, it was the year after then. Yeah, because my God, because we were obviously both there as well, weren't we? So if PodCastle had been on the thing, I think we'd have remembered if it probably was.
We would have remembered, it's true.
Yeah, you'd hope. Imagine there was a lot of Guinness at that after party, so maybe not.
Oh my goodness.
Good times. Right. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Schiller's on everything you're working on ECW Press. Tell us all the amazing books you've got coming out and
I do have a lot of amazing books.
Tell us on ECW Press and all your fantastic
works. There'll be a lot of familiar names. So the one I'm working on edits for Premi Muhammad's second novella with us, We Speak Through the Mountain, which is a follow-up to the Annual Migration of Clouds. It has an incredible cover.
And all vibes and every. It was a very Jen.
Exactly right. So the second one is like that as well, and it follows the story of Reed. And I'm also right now working on an edit. I'm just about to start an edit for Susan Palumbo's first novella. Super honored to be the editor of that. It's called Countess. It is a queer Caribbean Count of Monte Cristo set in space, which is the best pitch I've ever heard in my life.
Holy shit. And from Susan Palumbo as well. I mean,
from Susan Palumbo. It cannot get any better than that.
I am genuinely instantly an immediate convert, and you will be proselytizing this book on that basis alone now, definitely.
Oh my gosh. This is late next year. So
right.
And then I have horror novels from Ben Ruthnam, who wrote Helpmeet, which is on the World Fantasy as well this year, and Andrew Wilmot, shortly. And I also have a literary speculative collection by Rebecca Kirsch Garcia, who is a newcomer and an outrageous talent. The book that's coming in a couple months is called The Girl Who Cried Diamonds and Other Stories. It's a short story collection. And then she has a novel about a year after that.
Are you editing that as well?
Literary and speculative. Yeah, this is my list. I've sort of launched my list at ECW with all of those, with the star-studded cast. And Andrew F. Sullivan's The Marigold just came out to great acclaim and is kind of everywhere as well.
I've got to say the covers you get at ECW are just stunning as well. I mean, the one that Premi had for Annual Migration of Clouds was just, I mean, that is a tattoo in the making, if ever.
It is so gorgeous. Beautiful. Veronica Park is the artist for that, and is just check out her Instagram and everything. I cannot tell you what an incredible artist she is. Such attention to detail.
But I think that's oftentimes in sort of big publishers, if you're lucky and you are the chosen one, you get that kind of care and attention. But oftentimes it can be a bit, shush now, we're busy dealing with the Prince Harry book or whatever. But somewhere like ECW, every book is really important to you, and you really put that care and devotion to everything. And we really do have, we had meetings with the artist and with Premi and with me, and the person who does all the covers at ECW, that sort of directs it, and to talk about the book and to talk about the vision and that kind of thing. It wasn't just oh, here's your cover, there you go. We very much involve the author in that kind of process. And we did that with all of the authors. A lot of these books don't quite have covers yet. We don't have a cover for Countess yet, but it's going to be awesome, hopefully. But it's, that level of care does sort of show through, because it is so emblematic of the story as well. And just, you can tell when it's not just been dashed off, it's
beautiful.
A lot of thought has gone into it. Are you still involved in Ephemera as well, reading series?
Yeah. So we do the third Wednesday of every month. There is an hour-long reading series called Ephemera that me and KT Brisky do. And it's just all your favorite people from around the world.
It really is.
Reading speculative fiction. It's great.
Excellent. Anything else, or is that enough time in your day sucked up? Because that sounds pretty busy.
That is enough time. I do another reading series as well that's local to Toronto, and I'm trying to sort of back up and take space for myself.
Probably an idea at some point. It's burnout's no fun. I promise you. Don't go there.
No. I really I kind of get in there and need to fix that a little bit. But I'm on
You can't give from an empty well.
It's a big job. Yeah. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of after hours reading and that kind of stuff that I'm doing. And so a lot of my time is taken up at work, and a lot of my social life is work as well. I'm married to a writer. So my entire social life is writers and editors and publishing people. And
I feel like publishing probably slightly takes advantage of people's passion in this regard, doesn't it?
A little bit. Pretty much all the arts do. We have good funding for arts in Canada. I can't complain too much because it's definitely worse in other places, but but any artistic endeavor, video games, obviously television with all the strikes and everything, just seems to take complete advantage of creatives and people who want to live and work in creative industries. And frankly, we don't charge enough for art, apparently AIs can just make it all now. So why would we charge anything?
Yeah, I'm not convinced they can, but unfortunately I'm not in charge of the budgeting and the money. The people who are in charge are the capitalists who don't actually seem to understand creativity. I read a theory once that the reason copyright law is so sort of screwed down is because the people kind of with the drive to push it, sort of all the the capital owners, don't actually have that creative urge, and so don't understand that it isn't infinite resource and you can just keep making more new things. No, it is this precious rare thing that must be guarded and protected. No, just keep making more. Big melting pot, big bowl of gumbo. Just chuck it all in and see what comes out. It's but yeah. Anyway, we are very shortly about to run out of time, so I think I need to leave it there. Where's ECW Press at so people can find you? ECWpress.com. And there's a submissions page there. I am actually open to Canadian submissions of fiction at all times. So email me if you have, and that's for novellas and for novels. Excellent stuff. Well, thank you ever so much for coming back on. Thank you. It's been ages. I've missed you. It's, I've not seen you in probably since Dublin. I haven't seen you in person. Yeah. But I haven't spoken to you for a good year, 18 months or whatever. So it's been really good. I've really enjoyed having you back on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye. That was our show for this week. On behalf of everyone at PodCastle, your co-editors Shingai Enjeri Kagunda and Eleanor Arwood, assistant editor Caitlin Zavanovich, audio engineers Devin Martin and Eric Valdes, forum moderator Ossicat, and our many wonderful first readers, Andrew Cahoe, Craig Jackson, Amalia Harrington, Julia Patt, Kieran Corsini, Ryan Cole, Sarah S. Messenger, Sophie Barker, Shrikripa Krishna Prasad, Tava Nova, Tierney Bailey, Zeev Witties, and myself, Matt Dovey. Thank you for letting us share another story with you. The legal bit. PodCastle is part of the Escape Artists Foundation, a 501c3 non-profit, and this episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can share it, and please do, but you cannot sell it and you cannot change it. If you want specifics, check creativecommons.org. Our music is by Shiva in Exile. Everything we do on PodCastle is 100% donor funded. And if you'd like to support what we and the rest of EA do, please join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/EA podcasts. Prefer another method? There's details for supporting us via Twitch, Amazon Prime, Ko-fi and PayPal on escapeartist.net. We'll be back next Tuesday with another fantastic tale. In the meantime, you might care to check our sister podcasts, Escape Pod for science fiction, Pseudopod for horror, Cast of Wonders for YA speculative fiction, and Cat's Cast for speculative cat stories. If your heart belongs to us, though, we'll see you next week. Be safe and be kind.